All right, do you have what it takes to put together a championship NFL team? Could you play the right players and lead your team to victory? Or do you just need an excuse to get into football when the sports fan in your life takes over the TV? Well, maybe you should join a fantasy football league or start one with your own friends. Here now with how to get started, we have Adam Fisher. He's actually a sports reporter for the Naples Daily News. Thanks for joining us, Adam.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so let's just begin at the beginning.
Yep.
What is fantasy football?
So fantasy football is basically a virtual game where you assemble a team of real-life NFL players, and you get points based on how they perform. You get a league together with 10 or 12 of your friends. You draft some players at each position, and then how that player performs on Sundays, you get points. If your players get more points than your buddy's players, you win that matchup.
Okay, so each week you go head-to-head with just one other person in your league. Okay.
Yeah.
But when you put together your team could be from so many different, like the players can be from all different teams, right?
Right, and that's why it's fun. That's why the popularity is kind of taken off. So you're drafting players. You do an actual draft where you pick players. You know, I could have the Tampa Bay Bucks quarterback, Jameis Winston. I could have the Dolphins running back. I could have Gronk at tight end. So it's a fun way to kind of get into the NFL, to follow football, and to follow all the different teams, not just whomever you cheer for.
Because they talk about a draft, too, and a lot of players, that would be me, get really intense when it comes to draft day.
Yes.
You can do research on these players, and you basically draft just like they do in the NFL draft.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a way to be almost the general manager of your own team. And it's fun if you can do a live draft where you and your buddies all get together and you pick. If you have the #1 pick, you say, I, Adam Fisher, I take this guy. Then my buddy goes next. And so you take turns picking players.
There's a lot of trash talking that goes on during those live drafts, too.
And that's the fun of fantasy football, is playing with your friends and talking smack.
And my favorite thing about it is I could care less about the running back on Cleveland until he's on my fantasy football team. And then, all of a sudden, I'm rooting for Cleveland.
Football is a fun game to watch, but if you only have one team you like, it's tough to watch another team.
Yeah.
If you're playing fantasy, you know, I can watch any game and pick out a receiver, a running back that gets me excited to watch or to cheer against, of course. If my buddy has Doug Martin with the Bucks, you know, I don't want him to score. So it's a lot of fun to watch any game.
That's what I love about it, and it kind of makes you focus on that, and a lot of women are doing it now too. So, you know, he mentioned Doug Martin. Players like that might go. Jameis Winston, maybe. Cam Newton, of course. Julio Jones, they're going to go off the top. They're going to go really quickly. But when it comes to players that are further down on your roster, those dark horses, those are the ones that can really help you in your season. Those are the guys that can really make a difference. So who do you draft, okay? Recently, I went to Tampa Bay's training camp to find out why the Bucs deserve a second look on your way to #1. All right, I'm here with Scott Smith. He's actually the senior writer for the Buccaneers. We want to talk a little bit about fantasy football, and I don't mean to brag, Scott, but I did almost win the championship of my league last year. So can you kind of just give us some tips? You know, everyone gets the big names, but it's really the dark horses that, you know, determine a champion. So what can we look out for?
Sounds like my life story in fantasy football, by the way. You know, I've been with the Buccaneers for 25 years, and the best thing I can say about fantasy football and the Buccaneers is it's great to finally be relevant. I honestly think this is the best offense the Buccaneers have ever had. They certainly was last year in terms of yards. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Buck fans to pick their guys, our guys on their fantasy teams. And you're talking about deep sleepers, I would look at number 84, Cameron Brate.
Winston's pass caught for the touchdown. And it's Cameron Brate.
No, he's a tight end, not going to be drafted early, not going to be on people's radar because the tight end, the name that people know here is Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Cam Brate is running with the first team, has looked very productive, and on 30 targets last year, he caught 23 passes and had 3 touchdowns. So imagine, give him 50, 60 targets, you got some real good numbers there.
This is a running team, and that can rack up some points, too, whether you're talking about the quarterback or your running back.
Well, Doug Martin was fabulous last year in fantasy, and he was actually drafted low last year, so people who drafted him got great value out of him. After earlier in his career, he was drafted high, and then it didn't work out. But he's in the best shape of his life. He's running harder than he looked last summer, and he ran for 1,400 yards last year. And like you said, we are a running team. We're going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. We're going to power the ball. Doug Martin should be a first-round choice in anybody's league. Jameis Winston is a guy, I don't think that guys are going to draft. If you're in a 10-team league, I don't see Jameis Winston going as a starter, one of the first 10, right? But that's a great guy to pick as a backup in maybe the 11th or 12th round, and he could end up being better than your starter. So if you wait on a quarterback and end up with the 8th or 9th guy, also draft Jameis, you might end up with a first-round value there at the end.
I was asking you about fantasy football too, because you were saying you actually get pretty crazy about it.
I get so pumped up about it.
Because she sets her alarm clock for like if you're going to do a trade, you know, you'll set it for 2:01.
Different teams have different rules. So if like the trades and everything can happen starting at 2 a.m. where the players get reset, I'll set my alarm for 2:01 a.m. so that way I can get the player that I want, make sure nobody else gets him before me or at least gets in the queue before me. I'm crazy.
She's crazy competitive. Look out.
That's why Tony, our executive producer, wanted us to join a league, start a league together, but I had taken this year off just so I can sleep better.
The year off. It's good you recognize that though, and you can.
I want to play now, but I'm like, I know that I'm not going to play for fun. I'm just not. I'm going to play so that I can win.
I love it. I say you play. Do it.
I know. It is really fun, though. I mean, you pick a quarter. If you don't know anything about it, you pick a quarterback, a couple running backs, a couple wide receivers. They call it a flex player. You can get a tight end or whatever. And then you pick an entire defense so that they get points for you. And a kicker, which I switched up my kicker last year in the championship round. It ended up making me lose. So I'm sorry, Steve Hauschka from Seattle. You were my guy, and I turned on you at the last minute, but
bummer.
I ended up getting second in my league last year. But
That's
it is
pretty good.
really, really fun.
Yeah.
And I never cared about Seattle until, you know, Russell Wilson was my quarterback and Hauschka was my kicker and my defense was Seattle. And now I'm a big Seattle fan. So,
well, if you want to get in on the action, but you're maybe not into the fantasy football, tune into Fox 4.
The real one, yes.
Yes, because we are your official station for anything Bucks. So
that's right.
Keep it right here.
You can catch the next preseason game right here on Fox 4. It's August 20th. That's at 7 p.m. The Bucks are taking on the Jaguars. And I got to tell you, I picked up Blake Bortles last year as a backup quarterback. He's the quarterback for Jacksonville. He was my mid-season backup, and he really turned it on in the end there. This is for fantasy, obviously. He really turned it on at the end there, and he was my dark horse. So you never know.
She can't opt out this year. I'm not letting you. I wouldn't be a good co-host if I did.
I know,
you're
but
playing.
I'm crazy.
All right.